Chapter 32-26. Fengjiu stood not far away and watched, listening to the discussions of the people around. She watched the old woman beg bitterly, but the people in the medicine shop remained indifferent. She watched as the sky gradually darkened and the surrounding people dispersed, leaving only the old woman crying and begging. At this time, she supported herself with her walking stick and walked forward. "What illness does your son have?" Fengjiu asked, looking at the sorrowful and desperate old woman. When the old woman heard the voice, she raised her head and saw a person who looked like a beggar. She wiped her tears. Her voice was hoarse and weak, and her eyes were filled with despair and death. "I don't know what illness it is. Even the doctors can't find it. No one is willing to save him. No one is willing to help us. At this moment, she was already thinking that if her son died, she would die with him. Anyway, if her family died, there was no point for an old woman like her to live. "I can save him. Take me to see him," Fengjiu said, reaching out to help the old woman up. Perhaps it was because she had reached the point of despair. Hearing this, the old woman's eyes lit up. "You can save my son? Are you a doctor?" No, you must be an immortal with great ability. You must be a hidden immortal." As if to comfort herself, as if to give herself a last bit of hope, she did not doubt Fengjiu's identity and ability. On the contrary, she saw her as a hidden doctor, an immortal who could save her son. Just like this, she brought Fengjiu home. After Fengjiu left with the old woman, a middle-aged man walked out of the medicine shop, shook his head, looked in the direction they left and sighed. "Who can save someone who is about to die?" The waiter in the shop also walked out, looked at the people in the distance and said with a smile, "Dr. Liu, that beggar actually said that she can save him. She probably wants a place to stay. Who in this city doesn't know that Dr. Liu's medical skills are the best? Even you can't save someone, how can a beggar save him?" On the other side, Fengjiu followed the old woman home. She saw that it was a simple courtyard with many things piled up in the courtyard. There were a few rooms in the courtyard, and the old woman brought her into one of the rooms to the person lying on the bed. "He is my son. Immortal, quickly take a look at my son. You must save my son. He is a filial child. If he dies, I have no reason to live." The old woman cried, her voice sorrowful and helpless. It was the despair of an old mother. The despair of asking for help made her want to die. Fengjiu comforted her. "Don't worry, I'll take a look at him first. Help me bring a basin of water over here." "Okay," the old woman replied, wiping her tears shed, and walked out of the room. Fengjiu first glanced at the person on the bed and saw that it was a man in his 30s with a strong physique. However, he was now so thin that he didn't even look human. Moreover, he was unconscious and his breathing was extremely weak. After feeling his pulse, she was slightly surprised and withdrew her hand. The old woman also came in with the basin of water, so she washed her hand in the water and asked, "Did he become like this after he went out on a mission?" Chapter 32-27. They sent him back and didn't come back after leaving behind some money. "I've looked everywhere for medical help, but they all said there was no way." The woman cried and looked at Fengjiu. "Immortal, you have a way to save my son, right? You must have a way, right?" Fengjiu glanced at her and nodded. "Don't worry, your son won't die." Hearing this, the old woman cried with joy. "I knew it. I knew my son wouldn't die. I knew it. I knew it. He probably has wounds on his body that haven't been treated properly. Help me take off his clothes and check." Fengjiu gestured as he retreated to the side. Okay. As the old woman spoke, she stepped forward to help. Not long after, her son's clothes were taken off, leaving only his underwear. Fengjiu stepped forward to take a look. Her gaze fell on the man's abdomen, where a red line of blood extended upwards towards his heart. She had the old woman turn her son over. After checking, she finally found a wound at the back of his waist. The wound was only a red dot the size of a toothpick. It wasn't torn, and there were no other marks. If one didn't look closely, they would think it was just a red mole. "Turn him over and let him lie on his stomach," Fengjiu gestured. As he taught the old woman what to do, he took out silver needles and laid them out beside the bed. Seeing those silver needles, the old woman's heart skipped a beat. At this moment, she was nervous and worried. Those long silver needles were going to pierce into her son's body? If they pierced into the wrong place, would it? Thinking of this, she was about to speak when she saw that one of the silver needles had already pierced into her son. She could only suppress her anxiety. She didn't expect to hear the immortal's words at this moment. He was stung by a poisonous flower. First, he fell into a coma. Then, his body heated up. Then, his breathing became chaotic, occasionally accompanied by convulsions. This situation has already been like this for 2 to 3 months, right? He's already in the late stage. If he hadn't met me today, your son probably wouldn't have lived for more than 3 days. Fengjiu's voice drifted out. Hearing this, the old woman was stunned. Her eyes filled with joy. She didn't tell the immortal about this, but he actually knew. It seemed that her son could really be saved. As time passed, Fengjiu finished performing acupuncture on the man on the bed. He put away the silver needles and took out a pill from the space and stuffed it into the man's mouth. He also poured some spirit liquid into the man's mouth. After cleaning his hands, he walked to the side and sat down. Immortal, how is my son? The old woman watched the entire process. Perhaps it was because she saw the scene of Fengjiu saving her son. So her originally lifeless eyes had now regained their former vitality. Even her entire person looked much more energetic. He should be fine after a few more acupuncture treatments, said Wang Yao. Hearing this, the old woman beamed with joy. That's great. That's great. Immortal, please sit down and rest for a while, or you can rest in the room next door. I'll go cook now. I must thank you properly, Immortal. Thank you for saving my son. Chapter 32:28. The old woman was very grateful. Although the family did not have much money left because of the medical treatment, she still caught an old hen from her backyard and made a stew. She also cooked a few dishes for Fengjiu. Fengjiu used this time to clean herself up in the next room. At least, even if she could not change the others, she had to clean herself up. Immortal, it's time to eat. The old woman placed the dishes on the table and called out to Fengjiu. Coming. Not long after, Fengjiu pushed open the door and walked out. Although she was still wearing the same tattered clothes and was still limping, her ink-black hair had been tied up, and her beautiful face was revealed after she had washed up. Seeing Fengjiu's face, the old woman was even more convinced that she was an immortal who had come to save her son. If it was an ordinary person, how could they have such a beautiful face? Fengjiu held her walking stick and sat down at the table. She said to the old woman, No need to call me immortal, just call me Ghost Doctor. Yes. The old woman replied and gave her more food. Fengjiu saw that there was only one bowl and said, Elder, sit down and eat with me. Sit down and eat with me. I still have some things to discuss with you. All right, the old woman replied. She first went to the kitchen to get a bowl and a pair of chopsticks and sat down to eat. Fengjiu briefly explained her son's situation to the old woman at the table. When they finished eating, she put down the bowl and chopsticks and said, At most tomorrow morning. He will wake up tomorrow morning, but his body will need some time to slowly recover. Hearing Fengjiu's words, the old woman thanked Fengjiu gratefully. After all, a person who had been said by many doctors to have no chance of surviving was now said to wake up tomorrow and recover after a period of rest. How could she not be excited? That was her son. Her son had finally overcome this calamity. This was great. Elder, what is this place? Why is it that most of the people in the city are mystic cultivators, and not a single spirit cultivator? Fengjiu asked the question in his heart, and his gaze landed on the old woman. Hearing this, the old woman seemed a little strange. Ghost Doctor, where is this place? She looked at Fengjiu and saw that she shook her head. Her expression did not seem to be fake. She then said, Ghost Doctor must be an expert in seclusion. That's why you don't know. We're in the Black Tortoise continent, one of the divisions of the upper realm. Other than the mortals who can't cultivate, there are some mystics who can cultivate Black Tortoise techniques. As for the spirit cultivators that Ghost Doctor mentioned, This old lady only knows that in those big cities, those spiritual medicine masters are spirit cultivators. I've never heard of anything else. As the old lady spoke, she looked at Fengjiu and said, I think the ghost doctor should also be a spirit apothecary, right? Only a spirit alchemist can possess such miraculous and powerful healing abilities. My son is truly fortunate to have met a spirit alchemist like the ghost doctor. Fengjiu smiled, but he was surprised. One of the divisions of the upper realm? In other words, this place was still the upper realm but in a different area. Sure enough, the upper realm was vast and beyond the imagination of ordinary people. The old man was really capable. He actually sent her here with a teleportation array. It was indeed not simple. Chapter 32-29. Ghost Doctor. Ghost Doctor. My son is awake. He's awake. The old woman's voice sounded in the courtyard in surprise. Fengjiu, who was in the room, also came out after washing up. I'll go and have a look. As she spoke, she limped towards the room next door. The man on the bed had already woken up. Seeing Fengjiu come in, he struggled to get up, but Fengjiu gestured for him to lie down. Your body is still weak. Lie down, Fengjiu said as she sat down on the chair beside the bed. When the man on the bed saw Fengjiu's face, he was a little surprised, as if he didn't expect such a young woman. Moreover, this woman had a peerless beauty, but she was wearing shabby clothes and was limping. It was really strange. I heard from my mother that it was the ghost doctor who saved me. Yuan will first thank the ghost doctor for saving my life. When my body recovers, I will definitely repay you, he said as he lay on the bed. Because his body was still weak, his words were weak. Fengjiu nodded. Since you're awake, I'll give you another acupuncture treatment. After today, I'll give you another acupuncture treatment tomorrow. You'll only need to recuperate. I'll have to trouble the ghost doctor, Yuan said as he saw his mother step forward and take off his clothes. In front of such a young woman, he couldn't help but feel a little embarrassed. But when he saw that the ghost doctor's expression was the same as before, there was no change in her expression, he gradually relaxed. Because her son's condition had improved, the old woman was finally relieved. After busying herself with the matters at home, she took a basket of vegetables and went out to buy groceries. She bought a big basket of fish and meat, as well as a few fruits. Some of the people in the city who were familiar with her were a little surprised. Auntie you seem to be in a good mood today? Is your family's Yuan's condition better? A man asked. Looking at the old woman's smiling face, he was very surprised. During this period of time, he saw her frowning and her eyes red. It was rare to see her smile, so why was it that today? That's right, my family's Yuan met a benefactor, he's fine now. The old woman chuckled and said, I bought a lot of things to nourish my Yuan's body. Seeing the old woman leave with light footsteps, many people began to talk behind her. Once the news spread, Dr. Liu of the medicine shop also heard about it. This was because some people were saying that Dr. Liu's medical skills were not good enough and that the person that he could not save had been saved by someone else. Therefore, when Dr. Liu heard the news, he was also surprised and personally went to Yuan's house to see what was going on. When he arrived, the old woman was preparing lunch, and Fengjiu was in the room studying her suddenly powerless left leg. To his surprise, he discovered that there was a red mark of a talisman on her left leg. Did this old man use a talisman? She was astonished. She took out a book about talismans and started to read it. In her space, there were many books about this kind of thing. In the past, she had even learned the talisman clone technique. However, she didn't expect that her cheap master would also know the talisman clone technique. Moreover, he had used the talisman clone technique on her when she wasn't paying attention. As she flipped through the rune books in her room, she could faintly hear voices coming from outside Aniyu. I heard that Yuan's illness has improved? Is this true? Dr. Liu asked as soon as he entered the room. Chapter 32-30. After entering and seeing Yuan, Dr. Liu's heart was filled with shock. A person who was originally determined to die was now gradually recovering his vitality. This was too inconceivable. Outside the door, Dr. Liu pulled the old woman to the side and asked, Which expert cured you in? Is she still here? He looked around the courtyard and finally his gaze fell on the tightly shut door of a room. The old woman hesitated and said, "Yes, she is. She is called the ghost doctor and is still living at home. I want to see this expert. On to you, please go and tell her." Dr. Lu said as his eyes stared at the closed room. The old woman hesitated for a moment before saying, "Then, Dr. Lu, please wait a moment. I will go and ask." After all, they were in the same city and she often had to ask him for help. Coupled with his connections in the city, she couldn't refuse directly. "Ghost doctor, can I come in?" She knocked on the door and called out. "Come in," Fengzhou said from inside the room and put away the book in his hand. The door opened and the old woman walked in and closed the door. "Ghost doctor, Dr. Lu is here. He is the doctor from the pharmacy. He can be considered a reputable person in this city. Since he came personally today, I can't drive him out," the old woman said softly and looked at Fengzhou. "He said he wants to see you." "I wonder." Hearing this, Fengzhou said lightly, "Let him go back. I won't see him." "Okay." The old woman responded and went outside. Closing the door, she said to Dr. Lu, who was waiting in the courtyard, "The ghost doctor said she won't see him. Dr. Lu, you see." "Okay." Dr. Lu didn't insist and said, "Yuan's body is indeed getting better. Since that's the case, I will go back first." After saying that, he turned and left. After leaving the door, he looked back at the small courtyard and his eyes flashed slightly. Ghost doctor? A doctor with good medical skills? The other party's skills were above his. No wonder he didn't want to see him. However, the more it was like this, the more curious he was about what kind of person this person was. Fengzhou did not take Dr. Lu seriously. Therefore, after he left, she continued to read the book. She planned to break the talisman on her left leg first. However, at the same time, she asked the old woman to help her inquire about something. That was to find out if there was anyone in the city who was seriously ill, and what kind of character the ill spoke and behaved. This was not a difficult task for the old lady. After all, when she went out to buy groceries, she would chat with some acquaintances and talk about what was new in the city, as well as some gossip. When the old lady saw that it was Fengzhou's order, she tried her best to inquire about it. After all, he had saved her son without charging a single cent. Therefore, after she helped Yuan with the third acupuncture, she heard the old woman mention that there was someone seriously ill in the city, and that it was a good family. She made up her mind to go and take a look. However, when he thought of this, he couldn't help but feel that the tables had turned. In the past, it was always people who came to her for medical treatment. Now, she was the one who went to look for someone. It was really unexpected. "Now that Yuan is fine, it's time for me to leave." After Fengzhou bid farewell to the old woman, she left behind some money for her. "You can keep this money. Can help you and recover." Chapter 32-31. "It's all right. I've disturbed you for the past few days. Moreover, I know that you don't have much money on hand. Yuan's body is still weak, so there are many places where he needs money. Just accept this. Take it as a reward for helping me gather information for the past 2 days." Fengzhou smiled and stuffed the money into the old woman's hands. After staying here for 3 days, the old woman had killed 3 old hens in the backyard. This bit of money was nothing to her, but it could help her and her son. Holding the purse in her hand, the old woman's eyes couldn't help but redden. She looked at Fengzhou and asked, "Ghost doctor, are you going to the Qin family? I heard that second young Master Qin's illness was treated by doctors from other places, but it was useless. Moreover, the Qin family is very powerful. Although they are a benevolent family, if something happens, I'm afraid that they won't let it go easily." "Yes, I know." She smiled and nodded. "I'll leave first. Don't worry. I have my own plans." After bidding farewell to the Yu family, Fengzhou supported herself with her crutches and left. She asked around for the Qin family's location and walked along the road. However, after walking for a while, she heard incessant cries and screams in front of her. She couldn't help but pull one of them and ask, "What's going on in front?" A man turned around and saw that it was a beautiful woman. His expression softened and he glanced strangely at her nondescript appearance and the crutches in her hand. He said, "It seems that a pregnant woman in front was bumped into by someone. The situation is not good." Hearing this, Fengjiu frowned slightly and walked forward. When she came to the front, she saw that the woman had been carried to the clinic in front. She thought about it and followed. Seeing the woman's complexion and her belly that was so big that it looked like she was about to give birth, the situation was probably not good. Since she ran into it, she should follow and take a look. Therefore, she followed him to the clinic and watched from the outside with the other onlookers. After about half an incense stick's time, she vaguely heard someone inside saying, "Only one adult and one child can be saved. Hurry up and make a decision. Otherwise, neither of them will survive." At this time, he heard a few voices arguing. A man was shouting to save the children, and a woman was saying that she wanted to save the mother. It seemed that they were arguing inside. Look, this is the difference between the in-laws family and the maternal family. The maternal family wants to protect the mother. After all, the child can be reborn in the future. The in-laws family, on the other hand, wants to protect the younger ones. They can't bear to see their unborn offspring die. Then the man who said he would save the child is the woman's husband. That's right. He hugged his mistress in broad daylight and met his wife. He even let his mistress push his wife down. Now, he even said that he wanted to save the little one and abandon the big one. This man is too ruthless. That's normal. If the main wife was gone, wouldn't that benefit the mistress? What's more, men are all like this. They like the new and hate the old. What's so surprising about that? That's right. Didn't you see? The mistress is as beautiful as a fairy. Her willowy waist is so small that it can't be held in one hand. Compared to the main wife, her body is swollen and pregnant. Her waist is more than one circle round. How can they be compared? Chapter 32:32. When Fengjiu heard this, she saw that the argument was still going on inside, so she walked forward. Hey, who are you? What are you doing here? Can't you see that we're busy here? Someone stopped Fengjiu and said, trying to push her away. Fengjiu raised a branch and knocked that person's hand away. She looked inside and said, "I can save both the adult and the child." When these words came out, the people who were arguing inside couldn't help but fall silent and look at her in unison. Especially the man. When he saw her, his eyes were filled with amazement. When the stout woman saw this, she hurriedly went forward. "What did you say? You can save both the adult and the child?" "That's right. I'm a doctor," Fengjiu said and nodded slightly. Quick. As long as you can save both the child and the adult, I'll definitely thank you. Thank you very much." As the stout woman said this, she didn't mind that Fengjiu's clothes were tattered and brought her inside. "Dr. Lu, this young lady said that she can save my daughter and the child," the woman said to a middle-aged man inside. This middle-aged man was Dr. Lu. When he heard this, he turned around and his eyes flashed. "You're the ghost doctor?" When he went back, he had people ask around and found out that a person who used a branch as a walking stick and wore tattered clothes like a beggar had followed you and's mother home. The person in front of him seemed to be that person. Fengjiu glanced at Dr. Lu and calmly replied, "N." Hearing this, Dr. Lu's eyes lit up. "I heard that the ghost doctor's medical skills are high, but I didn't think that she would be so young. Since the ghost doctor said that she has confidence, then she must have confidence." As he spoke, he said to the woman and man, "You've met a benefactor today. If the ghost doctor can help, both the adult and the child should be saved." Although he had never seen her treat someone, he was the one who treated you, and so he naturally knew the situation. To be able to save someone who was on the brink of death and dare to call herself the ghost doctor, it could be seen that her medical skills were extraordinary. Therefore, it could be said that when she said that she could save him, he did not have the slightest doubt. Hearing this, the woman couldn't help but be overjoyed. "Then I'll have to ask the ghost doctor to quickly save him. I'll repay your kindness later. The rest of you can leave first. This madam will stay." She asked the others to leave and let the stout woman stay. "Ghost doctor, I wonder if I can stay and help? Actually, he wanted to see with his own eyes how the ghost doctor saved people. I'm afraid it's inconvenient, Fengjiu said faintly as his gaze fell on Dr. Lu. Dr. Lu, you can leave first. My daughter and grandson can't wait any longer, the woman said as she urged him to leave. After all, she was worried that it would affect her daughter if he delayed any longer. Seeing this, Dr. Lu turned around and walked out. In the medicine hall's cubicle, one could faintly hear the sound of people walking around and shouting for hot water. Other than the stout woman, no one outside knew what was going on inside. They only knew that as time passed, cries of pain came from inside. About an hour later, a baby was born. The cries of the baby shook the hearts of the people outside. The man couldn't help but rush in. When Dr. Lu saw this, he followed in. Chapter 32-33. The child was born less than a month ago, so his body needs to be nursed back to health. As for this madam, she also needs to recuperate. She carried the child to the stout woman and said, There isn't anything major right now. Dr. Lu, please take care of the rest. With that, she retreated to the side, and the stout woman and man squeezed forward to see the child and daughter. Thus, no one noticed Fengjiu's departure. When they came back to their senses and wanted to thank Fengjiu again, they saw that the person who was standing at the side just now had disappeared. Dr. Lu, how is my daughter? The woman handed her grandson to the son-in-law, who had squeezed forward and hurriedly asked Dr. Lu. After taking her pulse, Dr. Lu withdrew his hand and took a deep breath, saying, She is indeed fine. This was already the second time. He had no way of dealing with Yuan, but he was saved by the ghost doctor. Now, it was the same here. This woman's breathing was clearly very weak and she had no strength to give birth to the child. But in the end, she still gave birth to the child and saved her life. He couldn't help but admire the other party's medical skills. On the other side, Fengjiu, who had left, walked along the road and arrived in front of the Qin family's door. Looking at the large residence in front of her and the two stone lions squatting in front of the door, she thought for a moment before walking up and knocking on the door. Who are you looking for? The door opened a small crack, and she was surprised to see the person outside. The person outside was dressed in tattered clothes and held a walking stick in her hand, but she had an extremely beautiful face. I am looking for your family head. As she spoke, she took out a badge and handed it over. Just show this to your family head. When the gatekeeper took the badge, his hand couldn't help but tremble. He didn't have time to say anything else and hurriedly ran inside. At this moment, the atmosphere in the Qin family was gloomy and stifling. Although the Qin family was a large family in the city, the family head only married one wife. Moreover, the couple were very loving and had 2 sons and 1 daughter. Now that the 2 sons were seriously ill and helpless, the entire Qin family was shrouded in a sorrowful atmosphere. Family head, family head. The gatekeeper's voice hurriedly came from outside, causing the housekeeper waiting in the courtyard to shout, How rude! Don't you know where this is? How can you make a fuss? Butler, look at this. After all, the gatekeeper was relatively young. He was so excited that he lost his sense of propriety. At this time, after being yelled at by the butler, he hurriedly handed over the badge. The butler took a look at it and couldn't help but be shocked. Hiss! Where did this come from? This was actually the badge of an alchemy saint. Not to mention that there was no alchemy saint in their city, it was extremely difficult to find an alchemy saint in other large cities. There was a strange woman outside the door. She was extremely beautiful, but she was wearing tattered clothes. She walked with a limp and held a tree branch in her hand as a crutch. After she knocked on the door, she handed this to me and said that she wanted to see the family head. The gatekeeper said excitedly, Housekeeper, is this medicine saint very powerful? Can it save second young master? Holding the badge, the housekeeper couldn't help but shake his hands. He quickly said, Hurry up, invite him to the front hall and serve him well. I'll immediately go in and inform the patriarch. Yes. The gatekeeper hurriedly went to the door and invited them in. Chapter 32-34. Hearing the steward's words and looking at the badge, Patriarch Qin's eyes shone with pleasant surprise. Medicine saint? We have a medicine saint in our city? That's great. That's great. Madam, hunger can be saved. Hearing this, the weeping woman was startled. Medicine saint? Where is the medicine saint? Seeing this, the other man and girl in the room also came forward. Madam, look. Patriarch Qin handed over the badge. This is the medicine saint's badge. You guys stay here and take care of hunger. I'll go ahead and take a look. Saying this, he immediately strode out. At this time, Feng Zhou was sitting in the front hall and drinking tea. A maidservant was waiting on her, and the maidservant would steal glances at her from time to time. After a while, when the middle-aged man walked in quickly, she also looked at him and sized him up. At the same time, Patriarch Qin was also sizing up the person sitting in the hall. When he first saw her, he was very surprised. Although he heard from the steward that she was a beautiful young woman, he was slightly startled when he saw her tattered clothes. Now that he looked at her again, he felt even more strange. Although she was wearing tattered clothes, her temperament was extraordinary. Especially the other party's eyes, which were cold and had an intimidating light. He immediately collected his thoughts and strode forward, cupping his hands in greeting. I didn't know that the medicine saint was coming. I didn't come out to greet you. I hope you won't blame me. Patriarch Qin. Fengju nodded slightly. She didn't stand up, but sat and looked at him. At this time, Patriarch Qin came forward with the badge in both hands. Medicine saint, I'll return this badge. Fengzhou took the badge and put it away, saying, I came this time because I heard that the Qin family is a kind family. I also heard that second young Master Qin is seriously ill, so I came to take a look. Hearing this, Patriarch Qin was overjoyed. Thank you, medicine saint. Thank you, medicine saint. Call me Ghost Doctor, Fengzhou said. She took a sip of tea and stood up. Take me to see second young master. Yes, this way please, Ghost Doctor. He personally led the way, bringing her to the backyard. Arriving at the rear courtyard and entering the side room, Patriarch Qin hurriedly introduced to Fengzhou. This is my wife, this is my eldest son, and this is my youngest daughter. Come, quickly greet the Ghost Doctor. Greetings, Ghost Doctor. The three of them couldn't help but feel strange when they saw that the person who came was so young and beautiful, but her clothes were tattered. Fengzhou nodded slightly and walked forward. He came to the side of the bed and examined the man on the bed. The man on the bed was unconscious. His face was pale and bloodless, and his eyes were sunken in. His breathing was weak, as if he would die at any moment. After the examination, Fengzhou raised his eyebrows slightly and withdrew his hand in surprise. He looked at the man on the bed and said to the people beside the bed, Second young master is not sick. Hearing this, the Qin family members were stunned, especially Mrs. Qin, who couldn't help but say, Not sick? How could he not be sick when he was already so sick? Did the Ghost Doctor make a mistake? Madam, don't be rude. Patriarch Qin was shocked and hurriedly stopped her. He said to Fengzhou, My wife was too worried and offended you with her words. Please don't take offense, Ghost Doctor. The dignified medicine saint wasn't someone who could be questioned by just anyone. Moreover, she only said that he wasn't sick and didn't say anything else. Chapter 32-35. Hearing this, Qin family head took a deep breath and said, Ghost Doctor, please explain. If he isn't sick, then what is the cause of this situation? Fengzhou looked at them and said, An evil spirit is close to the body, and it is caused by an external evil spirit entering the body. Second young master is born with meridians, and it is easy for him to attract evil spirits. Looking at his situation, he has been ill for at least 1 or 2 months. Now that he is at the final stage, if the evil spirit succeeds, second young master won't be able to live. She continued, However, if this situation was seen by any doctor, they would say that he is seriously ill. However, no matter what medicine they use, it is very difficult to treat the illness. Then what do we do? The woman was stunned. Looking at her son on the bed, She rushed forward and was about to kneel in front of Fengjiu. "Ghost doctor, I beg you, please save my son. I beg of you." Fengjiu helped her up and said, "Madam, there is no need to be anxious. I am here today to save him." "Ghost doctor, is there anything we can do?" Qin family head asked. He only knew that his second son had been weak and sickly since he was young, but he didn't know that he was born with meridians. Born with meridians? So many people couldn't find out, but the ghost doctor in front of him knew. He really didn't know where she came from. Why did she come to his Qin family to save him? It is said that the higher the rank of a doctor and alchemist, the harder it is to invite them. "You are so powerful. Why did you come to my house?" The young girl at the side asked the question in her heart. Her eyes were also fixed on the beautiful woman. "Don't speak nonsense," Qin family head shouted, but he also wanted to know why. Why did she come to his house? Hearing this, Fengjiu smiled. "It is normal for you to find it strange. After all, I usually don't come to your house to treat people. However, in the end, my master asked me to come out and gain experience. He asked me to treat 100 seriously ill people, and the people I treat must not be evil people. Therefore, after asking around, I came to your house." She smiled and looked at the young girl, asking, "Am I clear enough? What else do you want to ask? You can ask all at once." The young girl's face turned red, and she looked at her with some embarrassment. After thinking, she asked, "Why are you wearing these clothes? Don't all girls like pretty clothes?" Hearing this, Fengjiu chuckled. "This is a treasure robe. Before I cure 100 people, this robe cannot be taken off." She paused for a moment, smiled, and continued, "Perhaps my master thought that I was beautiful, so he purposely made me look like this to send me down the mountain." Seeing Fengjiu speak in a relaxed manner and smile, the Qin clan could not help but feel relieved. They felt that although she was a respected saint of medicine, her personality was extremely good, so they did not feel so restrained. "Let's get down to business," Fengjiu said with a serious expression. "What we need to do now is to force the eviline qi out of his body. I'll give you a prescription. Quickly get the herbs and boil them into a medicinal bath for him to soak in." Hearing this, the man beside her hurriedly brought over a brush, ink, and paper and placed them on the table. After Feng Nine sat down, she wrote down the prescription with one hand. Looking at the words, and then at the calm and composed woman, his eyes flashed slightly. "I'll go get the herbs," the man said and quickly left with the prescription. Chapter 32-36. The fire burned under the tub, and the heat rose up. The water in the tub was so hot that it was smoking. As soon as the man was placed in, his originally pale body was scalded red. Because Patriarch Qin ordered everyone to leave, only Patriarch Qin, his eldest son, the housekeeper, and 2 servants were left in the courtyard. Looking at his son who was scalded red in the tub, Patriarch Qin's heart was in his throat. If it was an ordinary wooden tub, it would have been destroyed by the fire below. However, this tub was not made of ordinary wood, and the fire below was not burning brightly. Instead, it was half-baked from a distance. Fengjiu watched from the side. After a while, he stepped on a chair and walked to the side of the tub. He helped the second young master who was sitting in the tub remove the evil energy from his body. After the acupuncture, the medicinal bath lasted for about 4 hours. When Fengjiu ordered people to carry the person in the tub back to his room, Patriarch Qin hurriedly ordered the servants to carry him back to his room, as if he was afraid that his son would be cooked. Fengjiu entered the room and checked again. After taking out a pill and stuffing it into his son's mouth, he asked, "Patriarch Qin, does your family have any ancient jade?" "Ancient jade?" Patriarch Qin was startled. After thinking for a while, he said, "My family's ancestors did leave behind some jade pendants, but I don't know if they can be considered ancient jade." He paused, then said, "How about this? I'll go get them for the ghost doctor to take a look." He thought that the ghost doctor wanted them. In any case, she was treating his son. If she wanted ancient jade, he could find some for her. Thus, after seeing that his son's blood and qi seemed to be better than before, He hurriedly went back to get those jade pendants and other things. In the room, only the eldest young master and Fengjiu were left. The eldest young master looked at Fengjiu, asking, "Ghost Doctor, after doing this, will my second brother's body not be invaded by the evil energy in the future?" Hearing this, Fengjiu smiled. "No, this is only to help him expel the evil energy in his body. As for whether or not he will be invaded by the evil energy in the future, it will depend on whether or not your father can bring back useful ancient jade." "Why is that?" He was a little surprised. He had thought that the ancient jade was what she wanted, but now it seemed that it was not the case. Some ancient jades have the effect of repelling evil spirits. Moreover, they can prevent evil spirits from getting close to them. It has the effect of protecting the body. Fengjiu explained as he picked up his walking stick and limped to the table. He poured himself a cup of tea and drank it. Not long after, Patriarch Qin came back with a tray. There were many jade pendants and other things on it. He placed it in front of Fengjiu and said, "Ghost Doctor, please take a look. Is there anything you like?" Hearing this, Fengjiu was startled. He knew that Qin Fengjiu had misunderstood. He smiled and said, "Qin Fengjiu, this ancient jade is not for me. It's for second young master." She gave him a simple explanation. Seeing his enlightened and apologetic expression, she smiled. "It's just that, although these jades are quite old, they are still not good enough. Truly good jades are warm in the winter and cool in the summer. There are also warm jades that emit warmth all year round. There are also ancient jades that are extremely spiritual. These things of yours are not suitable. They are useless." She shook her head and pushed the tray to the side. Chapter 32-37. Hearing this, Fengjiu paused and pondered. This Qin clan's second young master's meridians really couldn't be suppressed by ordinary ancient jade. There wasn't even a single spirit cultivator in this place, let alone an ancient jade with spirituality. Was she expecting too much from them? "Ghost Doctor? Ghost Doctor?" Patriarch Qin called out to her. Seeing that she seemed to be distracted, he couldn't help but ask worriedly, "Ghost Doctor, what if we don't have the ancient jade?" Fengjiu came back to her senses and looked at the anxious Patriarch Qin, saying, "I do have a piece here." She took out an ancient jade from her space. Most of the treasures in her space were obtained from others, but there weren't many pieces of ancient jade that could ward off evil spirits. However, seeing that they really couldn't take out a piece of ancient jade that could be used, she thought for a moment and erased her traces of the ancient jade before handing it over to Patriarch Qin. "String this jade up and let him wear it around his neck." The piece she handed over was around 8 trigrams jade. This was the most suitable piece of jade for the Qin clan's second young master out of all the jade she had. If she hadn't heard that the Qin clan's people were all upright people, she wouldn't have taken out such a piece of jade. Receiving the jade from Fengjiu, Patriarch Qin was shocked. He could feel the warmth of the 8 trigrams jade in his hand. Moreover, there was a spiritual aura coming from the jade. It was obviously not an ordinary jade. This Ghost Doctor, this jade. He wanted to say that this jade was too precious and they didn't dare to accept it, but he couldn't say it. If he didn't accept this jade, what would happen to his son? Finally, he took the jade and solemnly bowed to Fengjiu. "1,000 words aren't enough to express my gratitude at this moment. Ghost Doctor, thank you." Fengjiu waved her hand and didn't say anything else. He had someone string the jade up and put it around second young Master Qin's neck. Then, he looked at Fengjiu and asked, "Ghost Doctor, is this okay?" Fengjiu replied, "Set up a soft bed here. I'll rest here tonight." This Patriarch Qin was a little hesitant. He glanced at his eldest son and said to Fengjiu, "Ghost Doctor, I have already ordered people to prepare a room for you. Ghost Doctor is our Qin clan's great benefactor. How can you rest on a soft bed?" Fengjiu smiled. "Whether or not second young master can get through this ordeal depends on tonight. I'll be here to guard him. If Patriarch Qin feels apologetic, you can send someone to prepare some food for me." Hearing this, the eldest young master of the Qin family immediately said, "Since that's the case, I'll get the kitchen to prepare." The ghost doctor can rest here for the time being. Saying this, he bowed and left first. Everyone in the room retreated, leaving only a soft bed for Fengjiu to rest on. While she was resting, the people in the kitchen prepared a sumptuous meal to entertain Fengjiu. At the same time, because of the words of some elders in the clan, Patriarch Qin secretly sent people to the city to inquire about Fengjiu's origins. At the same time, because he received her ancient jade, he was discussing with some elders in the clan to compensate her with something. Chapter 32-38. Are you talking about medicine or something like that? Patriarch Qin looked at one of the elders and hesitated before saying, I'm afraid that we can't take out any rare medicine. I think that the ghost doctor isn't an ordinary person. I'm afraid that she won't be interested in our things. In my opinion, it's more convenient to give crystal stones. One of the elders said and looked at the others. What do you all think? That's a good idea, but isn't this too direct? How can it be? No matter where it is, money and crystal stones are the most common. I think it's best to give this. Thus, the few of them discussed and finally decided to prepare some crystal stones for Fengjiu. Firstly, it could be used to pay for the treatment, and secondly, it could be used as a return gift. In the room in the backyard, the kitchen staff sent the dishes to Fengjiu's courtyard. When Fengjiu, who was originally resting in the room, heard the noise outside, she came out of her room and sat down at the stone table in the courtyard, eating her dinner unhurriedly. Patriarch Qin and eldest young Master Qin accompanied her in the courtyard. When she was full, Patriarch Qin asked, Ghost Doctor, are these dishes to your taste? And they're all good. Fengjiu replied, wiping the corners of her mouth as she stood up. I'm going back to my room. You all should go back and rest too. Patriarch Qin saw that she was going to leave and swallowed the words that were about to come out of his mouth. He only signaled the servants to clean up the table and left with his eldest son. Not long after they left, the people who were sent to inquire also returned. Patriarch, this subordinate has asked around in the city and found out that the ghost doctor only arrived in our city a few days ago. However, after she arrived in the city, she saved. The secret guard reported the information he had gathered to the Patriarch on the main seat. After Patriarch Qin heard the secret guard's words, he was secretly shocked, but at the same time, he also knew that if the ghost doctor could save those two people, she must be able to cure his son. However, there was also a trace of surprise in his heart. No one actually knew where the ghost doctor came from. It was as if she appeared out of thin air, but had such shocking abilities. It was really strange. That night, no one in the Qin clan could sleep peacefully, especially the Qin clan master and Madame Qin. Patriarch Qin, who was standing by the window with his coat on, sighed softly and turned back. He paced back and forth in the room, restless. The ghost doctor had said that it would depend on whether or not Hung Air could make it through the night. Probably wouldn't be that simple. Could it be that something evil would come tonight? Thinking of this, he had the urge to go to the courtyard to see what was going on. But thinking of the ghost doctor's instructions, he could only give up in the end. Even so, his heart was still concerned about the situation over there. Master, do we need to go and take a look at Hunger? With only the ghost doctor standing guard there, my heart is in a mess. I'm very worried. Tell me, if something happens, the ghost doctor is only a woman. How can she handle it? Madame Qin didn't even take off her coat. She paced back and forth in the room, looking outside from time to time. She had made up her mind that if there was any movement in the courtyard, she would rush over to take a look immediately. However, she was still quite a distance away, so she couldn't see the situation in the courtyard. She felt very uneasy. Chapter 32-39. On the other side of the courtyard, Fengjiu was resting on a soft couch in the room. As the night deepened, the outside was completely silent. Not a single sound could be heard. There was no light in the room and it was pitch black. Hence, Fengjiu was lying on the soft couch. If one did not pay attention, it would be difficult to notice that there was another person there. After midnight, the rustling sound of leaves rustling in the wind could be heard from outside. There was also a faint sound of the wind patting on the door and windows. The night breeze blew in through the cracks in the door and the half-open windows. It was icy cold and seeped into one's skin, causing one to shiver involuntarily. The room was completely silent. Fengjiu, who was lying on the soft couch, had already opened his eyes. His pair of clear eyes quietly looked into the pitch-black room. She retracted her aura and silently blended into the room. Only when she saw a few faintly discernible figures fighting to be the first to enter the room did she narrow her eyes and stare at the few phantoms in front of her. This brat's body is about to die. Let me use this body. No, we've already agreed that this is mine. How can that be? This kid looks like he's about to die. I should be the one who put in the most effort. This body of his is naturally the most suitable for me to use. I'll do it. I'll do it. One of the phantoms said and pounced forward. However, when the transparent figure pounced forward, it was repelled by a dazzling 8 trigrams that emitted a golden light. The phantoms pounced forward and did not leave any room for maneuver. This pounce used up all of their strength. Hence, their entire figure was struck by the light from the 8 trigrams and instantly disappeared into the air, leaving behind only a blood-curdling scream that reverberated in the air. Hearing such a scream in the middle of the night shocked the Qin family members so much that they wanted to rush over to take a look. However, when they remembered Fengjiu's instructions, they could only suppress the worry in their hearts and continue to wait. Meanwhile, in the side room, the unexpected scene shocked the few phantoms. They stared blankly as one of the phantoms disappeared into the air. Their eyes were filled with fear and they all took a few steps back. What's going on? This brat has a treasure on him. We can't get close. You didn't have any last night. How come you have a treasure on you tonight? Who did this? The phantom spoke and tried to move forward again. However, it was the same this time. Before they could touch the person lying quietly on the bed, they saw a light emitting from his chest and bouncing them away. Hiss! How strange. This brat is wearing an 8 trigrams ancient jade on his chest. One of the ghosts said hatefully. He was somewhat unwilling to let go of the body that he had guarded for so many years. Then what should we do? We can't get close to this kid. We can only leave first and think of a way. That ancient jade is very powerful. It's not an ordinary jade. If we force our way in, I'm afraid we'll end up with our souls scattered. Then let's go first. The ghosts were discussing about leaving, but at this moment, a gentle voice with a hint of laughter was heard. They were so shocked that they let out a low cry and quickly gathered together. Since you're here, why are you in such a hurry to leave? Fengjiu stared at the phantoms with great interest. The corners of his lips curled into a devilish smile. Chapter 3240. It was a woman. She was dressed in tattered clothes but had a beautiful face. She was lazily lying on the soft couch with a walking stick by her side. She stared at them with a teasing and evil charm. Being stared at by this woman's cold eyes, they couldn't help but be shocked and instinctively wanted to run. However, just as they were about to float out of the room and quickly leave, the woman's voice sounded. She slammed the walking stick in her hand on the ground and a soul-binding array appeared on the ground, trapping them inside. Since you're here, do you think you can still escape? Fengjiu narrowed her eyes and stared at the ghosts. Let us out. Who are you? We have no enmity with you. Why do you want to harm us? Hearing the ghost's cries, Fengjiu chuckled and picked up the gourd that her sister, Wanyan Chenhua, gave her. She twisted the lid open and pointed the mouth of the gourd at the ghosts. You can only blame yourselves for being ghosts. Instead of staying where you should be, you came out to bring disaster to the world. It would have been fine if I hadn't met you, but since I've met you, how can I not deal with you? As soon as she finished speaking, spiritual power surged from the gourd in her hand, and a powerful suction force suddenly sucked the ghosts into the gourd. As the ghosts were cleaned up, the cold aura in the room seemed to silently dissipate. She shook the small gourd and put it on her waist. After glancing at the soul-binding array on the ground, She formed a seal with both hands and removed the soul-binding array on the ground. She finished all this in less than the time it took for a stick of incense to burn. She lit up the lamp in the room. When the lamp lit up, she was surprised to see that the person who was supposed to be asleep on the bed had already woken up and was looking at her with his eyes wide open. Awake! Fengzhou raised her eyebrows in surprise. You saved me? Second young Master Qin looked at the strange woman. He wanted to get up but found that he had no strength. He could only ask, Who are you? I'm your savior, Fengzhou said as if she was telling the truth. She limped forward and sat down beside the bed. She reached out and naturally felt his pulse. Yes, your vitality has recovered a lot. Your pulse has also become stronger. Most importantly, the evil aura in your body has dissipated. I estimate that you should be fine after soaking in the medicinal bath again. As Fengzhou spoke, she withdrew her hand and saw him looking at her in a daze. She asked, What? Do you still have something to ask? Who are you? Second young Master Qin asked. He felt that this woman was very strange. She was actually in the same room as him in the middle of the night. Moreover, she had a calm expression. And the scene just now, Fengzhou stood up and looked at him with her walking stick in one hand. You can call me Ghost Doctor. As she spoke, she turned around and lay down on the soft couch. She took a blanket from the side and covered herself with it. She closed her eyes and rested. Have a good night's sleep. When you wake up tomorrow, you'll find that your body has recovered a lot. Fengzhou narrowed her eyes as she spoke. She ignored him and went to sleep. Naturally, she forgot to inform the Qin clan members who couldn't sleep and were waiting. As a result, she made them wait for an entire night. It wasn't until the next day that Patriarch Qin and the others hurried to the courtyard when the sky brightened up. Chapter 32:41. Hearing his father's voice from outside, second young Master Qin, who was lying in the room, was stunned. His father? How could his father let a woman stay in a room alone for an entire night? Even if it didn't mean anything to him, the other party was still a woman. This would damage her reputation. At this moment, the woman lying on the soft couch stood up and walked out with her walking stick. The door opened and he heard his father's careful voice. Ghost Doctor, how is my son? Is he all right? Fengzhou yawned and said, You can boil the medicine again today. There's no need to boil it. Just let him sit in the bathtub and soak. When the water turns cold, change it to hot water. As she spoke, she paused and said, Didn't you arrange a courtyard for me? Find someone to bring me there. Yes. He hurriedly turned back and said to his eldest son behind him, Bring the Ghost Doctor over personally. Ghost Doctor, this way please. Eldest young Master Qin gestured for her to leave. Fengzhou nodded slightly and followed him out of the courtyard to another courtyard. After she left, Patriarch Qin, Madame Qin, and the others all rushed to the side room. When they saw their second son who had already woken up, they were extremely excited. That's great. It's good that he's awake. Patriarch Qin said excitedly. For a moment, he didn't know what to say and just nodded happily. Hunger. Mother was worried to death. Quickly let Mother take a look. Madame Qin quickly walked forward and looked him up and down. She couldn't help but cry. You've been unconscious for days and nights. Mother was worried to death. Second brother. The young girl also happily squeezed forward and called out. Father, Mother. Second young Master Qin called out from the bed. Because his body was weak, his voice was weak. He lay on the bed and asked, Father, who was that person just now? She's the Ghost Doctor. She saved you. Patriarch Qin briefly explained the situation to him. On the other side, eldest young Master Qin also came over after sending Fengzhou to rest. Entering the side room, he strode towards the inner room. Seeing that his second brother had already woken up, he couldn't help but reveal a smile. The Ghost Doctor really has a way. I didn't think that second brother would be able to wake up so quickly. This is really great. Big brother. Second brother, your body is weak. You should take care of yourself first. Don't worry, the ghost doctor said that as long as you take care of your body, there won't be any big problems in the future. On this side, their family was gathered together. On the other side, Fengjiu was lying on the bed, flipping through books on talismans. She flipped through them all morning, until it was almost noon. The corners of her lips curled up slightly, revealing a smile. You still won't let me find it? She turned over and got off the bed. She limped over to the table and sat down. She took out cinnabar and talisman paper from her space and began to draw talismans according to the instructions in the book. Her first attempt was unsuccessful. However, after wasting more than 10 talisman paper, she finally drew a talisman that could be cracked. I have to try. There was a bit of eagerness in her eyes. She stretched out her weak leg and rolled up her trousers. She held a talisman between her 2 fingers. With a thought, a flame shot out from between her fingers and ignited the talisman. Crack! Chapter 32:42. At the same time, the bark-like thing on her hand also disappeared along with the mark. Seeing that the bark on her hand had disappeared, she stretched out her left leg and kicked it. As expected, she regained her strength and senses. Seeing this, she couldn't help but chuckle. This old man, does he think that I can't solve it just because of this? He's underestimating me too much. She stood up and practiced a set of Tai Chi in the room. After moving her muscles and bones, she felt refreshed. However, looking at the clothes on her body, she frowned and studied it left and right. She murmured, I don't believe I can't take off these clothes. She didn't use any other methods. Instead, she called for the people outside to prepare water for her bath. Then, she came to the bathtub and urged the life flame in her body. Once the flame on her body burned, it didn't take long for her clothes to be completely burned away, revealing her snow-white skin. Simple, direct, and violent. She smiled with satisfaction and stepped into the bathtub to take a good bath. At the same time, Dan Wang in Dan Wang's valley seemed to have sensed something. He opened his eyes in meditation and a trace of surprise flashed across his wise eyes. This little girl actually broke my talisman? She even knows this? What a surprise! After taking a bath, Fengjiu changed into her favorite red robe. It was a simple outfit, but it revealed an extraordinary aura. Ghost Doctor. When Patriarch Qin's voice came from the courtyard, she opened the door and walked out. She, who was dressed in red, didn't need the tree branch as a walking stick and didn't wear those tattered and dirty clothes. When she walked out like this, the 2 people in the courtyard were stunned. They were somewhat startled and also somewhat stunned. Ghost? Ghost Doctor? Patriarch Qin looked at her in surprise. Her face was not bad, but her tattered clothes and the way she walked with a limp, why? Did it seem a little different? When Patriarch Qin looked at the beautiful and cold woman dressed in red, his eyes couldn't help but flash. The shock in his eyes couldn't be concealed. He knew that she was extremely beautiful, but he didn't expect that a person with the same face would have such a different aura after changing her clothes and throwing away her walking stick. Fengjiu raised his eyebrows and raised his voice slightly. His drawn-out voice and lazy reply made the young master of the Qin family's heart skip a beat. He couldn't help but lower his eyes and didn't dare to look at him. Patriarch Qin, on the other hand, calmed himself down and said, Ghost Doctor, how much longer does my second son have to soak in there? You've been soaking in that medicinal bath ever since the Ghost Doctor came this morning. Will your body be able to take it if you continue to soak in it? Fengjiu looked at the sky and said, I'll go with you to take a look. As he spoke, he walked out. Patriarch Qin and Patriarch Qin naturally followed behind. Looking at the Ghost Doctor who walked in front with light steps and seemed to be in a good mood, the father and son looked at each other and suppressed the doubts in their hearts. Fengjiu arrived at second Patriarch Qin's courtyard. The moment she entered, she saw that Madame Qin and young Miss Qin were also there. As expected, they all had shocked expressions when they saw her. Chapter 32:43. Ghost Doctor. Isn't it inappropriate to go in now? Hong Er is soaking naked in the bathtub. This Actually, she was only worried that the ghost doctor was a woman. If this spread, it would be bad for her reputation. After all, men wouldn't be at a disadvantage in this kind of thing. Hearing this, Fengzhou turned around and smiled wickedly. Naked? It's fine. It's not like I haven't seen your second young master naked before. Hearing this, Madame Qin was stunned and didn't know how to react. To this was different from what she had imagined. The Qin father and son who followed behind were also stunned when they heard this. However, thinking that the ghost doctor wasn't an ordinary person, they didn't say much and just let the people in the courtyard leave first. Help your mother back to rest. We'll take care of things here. Patriarch Qin instructed his youngest daughter and indicated for them to leave first before walking inside. Inside, Fengzhou walked towards the bathtub. Seeing second young Master Qin sitting in the bathtub, his face flushed red. Men and women are different. How can you come in like this? Fengzhou glanced at him. Don't worry, in my eyes, you're not a man yet. Indeed, she only treated this person as a patient and didn't treat him as a man. Moreover, it was just a man's body. Her husband's body was the real deal. Others were just SOSO in her eyes. Hearing this, second young Master Qin's face flushed red, but he didn't know what to say. He could only stare at her. He had never seen a woman like her. It was really, really outrageous. Give me your hand. As Fengzhou spoke, she didn't actually get too close to the bathtub. Instead, after second young Master Qin extended his wrist, she checked his pulse and then nodded. All right, you can get up now. I'll get someone to boil some medicine for you to drink later. You'll be fine after you nurse your body back to health. As she spoke, she walked out without looking at the person in the bathtub. Patriarch Qin and eldest young Master Qin, who had just come in, looked at each other. One of them went out, and the other went forward to help their younger brother out of the bathtub. They then called for someone to come in and help him to the bed to rest. Patriarch Qin. Fengzhou sat down at the stone table in the courtyard and looked at Patriarch Qin who had followed him. Yes, what orders does the ghost doctor have? Patriarch Qin hurriedly stepped forward and asked. Patriarch Qin, there's something I need your help with. Fengzhou looked at him and said. Hearing this, Patriarch Qin hurriedly said, Ghost doctor, feel free to ask. As long as it's something I can do, I will definitely not decline. Fengzhou nodded and said, I want to temporarily stay in your residence for a period of time. In addition, help me spread the news that those who suffer from incurable diseases can come to my residence to seek treatment. However, there are a few points that need to be made clear. She paused and looked at him. First, I won't treat those who are not dying. Second, I won't treat those who are evil and not righteous. Third, I won't treat those who are not pleasing to the eye. Also, there are only 97 slots for treatment. Hearing this, Patriarch Qin was startled. Then, he recovered and replied, Yes, I'll arrange this immediately. After Patriarch Qin agreed, he left first. He planned to personally arrange this matter and couldn't be careless. After he left, eldest young Master Qin also walked out and came in front of Fengzhou. Chapter 32:44. Fengzhou glanced at him, asking, Is there a problem? That old man had told her not to look for him, and that she could only rely on luck. If she really relied on luck, then how long would she have to stay here? Furthermore, the matter she had asked Master Qin to do was not for her to look for the patient, but for the patient to look for her. She still had a choice. Meeting that pair of eyes, his heart shook, and he couldn't help but lower his gaze. No problem. I'm just a little curious. Hearing that, Fengzhou chuckled lightly, playing with her hair, saying carelessly, It's better not to have curiosity, especially when men are with women. Don't be curious, because once you're curious, you'll want to investigate, and if you're not careful, you'll be consigned to eternal damnation. This is not a good thing. Hearing that, a trace of panic flashed across eldest young Master Qin's eyes, and his face turned pale. He didn't even dare to look at Fengzhou, only lowering his head, saying, Yes, the ghost doctor's teachings are right. I'll remember it. I remember that I still have matters to attend to, so I'll take my leave first." Saying that, he bowed and hurriedly left the courtyard. Looking at his back, he even looked like he was fleeing. Fengzhou glanced at the departing figure and calmly retracted her gaze. How could she not know the change in eldest young Master Qin's eyes when he looked at her? If it weren't for the fact that this family had a good population, she wouldn't have stayed here and used them to do things. The second young master of the Qin family, who was resting on the bed in the room, was now lying on the bed and staring blankly at the ceiling. The conversation outside had not been hushed, so it had reached his ears. Hearing the warning contained in the careless voice, he slowly closed his eyes after being stunned for a moment. Actually, it was normal for eldest brother to be curious about the ghost doctor. Not only eldest brother, he was also curious as to why such a woman would appear here, curious as to what kind of person she was, curious as to everything about her. However, she was right, it was best not to be curious about things that one shouldn't be curious about, especially a man's curiosity about a woman. If one didn't restrain their curiosity, the more curious they were, the more they would want to understand such a person, and the more they would want to know everything about her. Of course, no matter who it was, they all understood that a woman like the ghost doctor was definitely not an ordinary woman, and definitely not a woman they could covet. Fengzhou didn't mention it again, and the eldest young master of the Qin clan didn't dare to probe further. 2 days later, more and more people came to the Qin clan residence. Fengzhou did not check the patients one by one. Instead, he instructed the Qin clan's patriarch to check the patients' backgrounds. With the Qin clan's patriarch checking the patients' backgrounds, things went smoothly. In the blink of an eye, 10 days had passed. During the 10 days that Fengzhou stayed in the Qin family, she had cured many people. Because of this, some people from other towns came over after hearing the news. However, due to the strange request of the 3 people who failed to be cured, there were not many people who could be cured by her. On this day, after treating the last patient of the day, Fengzhou wrote down a number in her notebook. Looking at the number, her eyes flashed. Chapter 32:45. After finishing her business, she returned to her room, closed the door, and flashed into the space. During this period of time, she arranged the treatment to be done during the day. At night, she would enter the space to study the pill formula that the old man gave her. During this period of time, she had gained some insights. Tonight, she wanted to try and see if she could refine the pill. Thus, after entering the space, she began to make preparations. At this time, in front of the Qin clan's door, a group of people quickly surrounded the Qin clan. The leader of the group stared at the Qin clan with a gloomy face. He raised his hand and signaled for someone to go up and knock on the door. "Open the door! Quickly open the door!" This group of people came in a menacing manner. Moreover, their bodies were filled with hostility. Along the way, many people followed behind them to watch. When they saw that these people had surrounded the Qin clan's mansion, some people secretly sucked in a breath of cold air and quietly retreated a few steps to open up some distance from these people. Strange, these people don't seem to be people from our city. Are they from somewhere else? A man said. He looked at these people who were filled with hostility with astonishment. He felt that these people's murderous aura was very heavy. It was even heavier than the smell of blood on the bodies of ordinary black martial cultivators. I think they are people who just entered the city. As soon as they entered, they went around asking about the Qin clan's location. I wonder if they are the Qin clan's enemies. A person next to him said in a low voice. His gaze also fell on the people in front of them. These people's murderous aura is very heavy. They don't look like ordinary people, nor do they look like people from aristocratic families. Ah, look at the symbol on their clothes. Aren't they people from the 7 Martial Sect on 4-Eye Mountain? 7 Martial Sect. Hearing this, some people took a closer look. Sure enough, they saw the 7 Martial Sect symbol on their clothes. They couldn't help but be astonished. Why are people from the 7 Martial Sect here? What do they want to do? This 7 Martial Sect is one of the most prominent factions in the nearby cities and towns. It is said that they have a lot of disciples and their strength is not weak. Although they are not aristocratic families, They are quite popular in the surrounding cities and towns. Even those aristocratic families have to give some face to the Seven Martial sect. Now that they have found trouble with the Qin family, in my opinion, the Qin family will be in trouble. The Qin clan is a kind and benevolent person. Usually, they didn't offend anyone. Now that the Seven Martial sect's people suddenly came, could it be that they came for the ghost doctor who lives in the Qin mansion? Targeting the ghost doctor? Everyone looked at each other and said, "That's not impossible. After all, how many days has it been? The ghost doctor's name is well known here. Maybe they want to ask the ghost doctor to treat their illness? See a doctor? This is not the way to treat a patient." While everyone was discussing in low voices, the knocking on the door was also abnormally loud. The sound of knocking was accompanied by shouts. Not long after, the door opened and a person poked his head out. When he saw the situation outside, he couldn't help but be shocked. What's going on?" the gatekeeper asked with a trembling voice. Looking at the people outside who were menacing, he couldn't help but shrink his neck. However, when his gaze fell on the two people in the front, his eyes couldn't help but shrink. People from the Seven Martial sect? Why are people from the Seven Martial sect here? Chapter 32:46. He didn't know why these people came to knock on their Qin clan's door. For a moment, the gatekeeper looked at those people with fear, and in the next moment he finally knew why these people came. "Go! Let the ghost doctor come out. Our Seven Martial sect's people specially came to invite him up the mountain." One of the two middle-aged men shouted and signaled the gatekeeper to go in and call the ghost doctor out. Hearing this, the gatekeeper quickly ran inside and quickly reported the matter to the housekeeper. After the housekeeper reported, he quickly went to the master of the main courtyard. Before they came to report, the master of the Qin clan already knew from the secret guards that the Seven Martial sect's people had come. He didn't go to ask Fengzhou to come out, but instead stepped outside. "Master, outside." When the housekeeper bumped into him, he quickly wanted to say, but was stopped by the master of the Qin clan. "I know, let's go. Follow me outside to have a look." He signaled and strode outside. On the other side, after eldest young Master Qin and second young Master Qin heard the news, they also prepared to go outside to have a look. However, when second young Master Qin was about to get up, he was stopped by eldest young Master Qin. "Although you have been recuperating for a few days, your body hasn't recovered. It's better not to go out. Just stay here. I'll go and have a look first." After saying this, eldest young Master Qin went outside first. Fengzhou didn't know what was going on outside. At this time, she was still in the space. Because the ghost doctor living in the Qin clan had indeed saved a lot of people recently, the people in the city still had a good impression of her. Because of this, when they heard that the Seven Martial sect's people wanted to bring the ghost doctor up the mountain, someone first quietly ran to the city lord's mansion to report what happened here. When the master of the Qin clan arrived, the Qin clan's door also opened. Some people in the clan also heard the news and rushed over, standing behind the master of the Qin clan. However, when they saw the people who surrounded the Qin clan's eyes couldn't help but flash. "So it's the third master and fifth master of the Seven Martial sect." Master Qin looked at the two leaders and smiled. He cupped his hands and bowed to them. "You two have come from afar. Why don't you come in and have a cup of tea?" Seeing Patriarch Qin's calm and steady demeanor, the eyes of the two leaders only flashed, and their gloomy complexions didn't ease up much. They stared at Patriarch Qin and said in a strange tone, "Patriarch Qin has good means. A ghost doctor came to your house, but you actually hid him and didn't see him. Today, us two brothers came to invite this ghost doctor to our Seven Martial sect. Patriarch Qin, don't waste time. Quickly invite that ghost doctor out." Listening to these words, Patriarch Qin smiled. I don't understand what you two are talking about. How can a guest of my Qin family become a person that the Seven Martial sect wants?" As soon as the two men heard this, their complexions turned cold, and a vicious aura overflowed from their bodies. "Patriarch Qin, do you want to be enemies with our Seven Martial sect?" Who in the surrounding towns and cities doesn't know that the seven martial sects' battle prowess is formidable? For no reason, why would my Qin clan become enemies with the seven martial sect? Patriarch Qin's voice paused. He looked at them and said, although my Qin clan doesn't want to easily become enemies with others, if others bully my Qin clan won't let it go. Won't let it go. Chapter 32:47. I have long heard that Patriarch Qin's Qin family fist is very powerful. Today, I would like to exchange a few moves with Patriarch Qin. One of the middle-aged men walked out, his eyes locked on Patriarch Qin. This Qin will accompany you to the end, Patriarch Qin calmly said and stepped forward. A large open space was quickly cleared in front of the Qin family mansion, and the surrounding people automatically retreated a little. Seeing that the two were about to fight, some people were worried for the Qin family, and some people had a look of schadenfreude. Young Master Qin watched his father step forward and fight with the middle-aged man, and he could not help but worry, although he knew that his father's strength was not weak. But the opponent was the third sect master of the seven martial sect. His strength was ranked third among the seven sect masters. If he fought with his father, who knew who would win and who would lose? Patriarch Qin slightly rolled up his sleeves and stuffed them into his sleeves. Because it was a fist fight, he did not hold a weapon in his hand. He just squatted in a horse stance and assumed a fighting stance. That seven martial sect's disciple's eyes slightly flashed, and in the next moment, he tightly clenched his fists and suddenly rushed forward. Along with the beginning of his attack, a burst of profound chi aura emerged from his tightly clenched fists, and with a whoosh, that airflow swept out, bringing along a frightening hidden strength. However, Patriarch Qin, who had assumed a stance, did not dodge, but met the other party's attack head-on. His fists were also tightly clenched, and a spiritual aura visible to the naked eye emerged on his fists. As the two fought, the aura of the two became more and more powerful. Pong! Pong pong! As the sound of the fist hitting the ground fell, a faint muffled groan could be heard. As Patriarch Qin waved his fist, the unpredictable attacks made the middle-aged man of the seven martial sect unable to resist, and he retreated step by step, dodging in all directions. The fight between the two gradually became one side attacking, and the other side being beaten, which made the surrounding people somewhat dumbfounded. They knew that Patriarch Qin's strength was very strong, but they did not expect that even the fifth sect master of the seven martial sect was not his opponent. Patriarch Qin clenched his fist and fiercely punched out. A visible spiritual aura wrapped around his fist, and it made a sharp whistling sound as it struck towards the middle-aged man. Bang! His movements were too fast, and Patriarch Qin's fist was also too fast. It was so fast that he didn't even have time to avoid it. He could only take the punch head-on. Ah! As the fist landed, a blood-curdling scream rang out. He was sent flying 7 to 8 meters away, and the fist landed on his stomach. Although it wasn't a fatal blow, it still caused him to bend over and kneel on the ground with a plop. His face was pale, and he couldn't say anything for a while. Third brother. When the other middle-aged man saw this, he couldn't help but be shocked. He quickly went forward to help him up. Third brother, are you okay? The lips of the middle-aged man, who was ranked third, trembled slightly. He felt that the pain had not yet dissipated, and he could not speak. Thank you for letting me win. Patriarch Qin retracted his fist and let out a sigh of relief. At the same time, he cupped his hands and said to the two people. When they heard that, the two of them glared at Patriarch Qin at the same time. After a long while, the middle-aged man helped his third brother to the side and handed him over to someone else. Then he looked at Patriarch Qin. Chapter 32:48. Hearing this, Patriarch Qin slightly frowned. Although he didn't want to be enemies with them, they were forcing him step by step. If he backed down, how could the Qin family have a foothold in the city? At that moment, he said in a deep voice, "Okay. However, if fifth sect master loses, you have to leave with your people immediately." "Haha, no problem." That person replied easily, but there was a fierce glint in that pair of sinister eyes. At that moment, his figure flashed forward. As he moved, he gathered profound energy in his hands and clenched them into fists. Then, he fiercely punched out his powerful fist towards the patriarch of the Qin family. The Qin family's eldest young master and the others watched the two fight one-on-one and were slightly relieved. The 7 martial sect's 7 sect masters were ranked based on strength. Since the sect master ranked 3rd was defeated, the sect master ranked 5th was naturally nothing to be afraid of. It was because they thought of this point that when the two of them exchanged blows, almost everyone felt that Patriarch Qin would definitely win. However, when they saw the two fists colliding, the profound energy aura in front of the fists bounced the two of them a distance away, and they couldn't help but be slightly surprised. They didn't expect the 5th sect master's strength to be so strong. If it was someone else from the Qin family, no one would be his opponent, right? As they were thinking, they saw the profound qi of both sides colliding with each other. They watched as they rushed forward again and fought with their bare fists. The sound of fists hitting each other was heard. After a while, when they saw the 7 martial sect's 5th sect master's fist landed heavily on Patriarch Qin's chest, and Patriarch Qin groaned in pain. His footsteps were slightly disordered and his figure retreated, but he couldn't fight back. They couldn't help but feel strange. Strange, why didn't Patriarch Qin fight back? Patriarch Qin's face doesn't look right. Ah, he's bleeding. Patriarch Qin's chest is bleeding. Everyone was discussing. When they saw Patriarch Qin being kicked to the ground, they saw that there was a wound on his chest that was bleeding. Father, Patriarch. Patriarch Qin was shocked and quickly ran forward to help him up. Eldest young Master Qin's eyes swept over and saw a sharp blade between the man's fingers. He couldn't help but tremble in anger and his eyes turned red. You used a dirty trick. How despicable to use a sharp blade to hurt people. A dignified disciple of the 7 martial sect actually dared to do such a despicable and shameless thing in front of so many people. It was really shameful. At this moment, everyone noticed that there was indeed a sharp blade between the fingers of the 5th sect master that were clenched into fists. When they saw this, they suddenly understood. It was no wonder that Patriarch Qin's entire body had changed after that punch. It turned out that the punch was not just a punch, but a blade had also pierced into his chest. It could only be said that the people of the 7 martial sect were too ruthless. They wanted to kill Patriarch Qin. Not good. There's poison on the knife. One of the patriarch's expression changed drastically. Looking at the fainted patriarch whose face was purple, his heart sank. He immediately stood up and shouted angrily, "Take out the antidote." "Antidote? I have the antidote. Do you dare to feed it to him?" The middle-aged man sneered, glanced at them and said, "It's better to let the ghost doctor come out as soon as possible and obediently come with us. Otherwise, Patriarch Qin will only be the first, and it's hard to say who will be the second." Chapter 32:49. Who is it that wants me to obediently follow them? Hearing this voice, everyone's heart couldn't help but tremble. They looked towards the source of the voice, and with one look, their eyes were filled with amazement. They saw that the person who came was a beautiful woman, dressed in a dazzling red dress. Her bearing was cold and elegant, and her every movement naturally exuded a calm and noble aura. Listening to her words, she was the ghost doctor who had been the talk of the town recently. During this time, there weren't many people who had actually seen the ghost doctor. At first, people only knew that she was a woman in tattered clothes who walked with a limp, but they didn't expect that the person who came out today was actually such a beautiful woman. When the people of the 7 martial sect saw Fengjiu, their eyes flashed with amazement, especially the middle-aged man who was ranked 5th. He stared at Fengjiu as if she was his prey. "You are the ghost doctor?" However, Fengjiu, who came out, only glanced at those people indifferently before retracting her gaze. She came to the side of the Qin family's patriarch who was being supported. She stretched out her hand to feel his pulse, then took out a pill and fed it to him. "First, send the patriarch in to rest. Let the house's doctors clean up his wounds. I will go over in a moment," she said to the Qin family's eldest young master. "Okay." After hearing her words, The Qin family's eldest young master nodded and quickly helped his father in. Behind them, the second young master, who called Fengzhou, overstood behind the others. His face was still somewhat pale, but his eyes were glaring fiercely at the people of the seven martial sect. Because he knew that he couldn't help much, he didn't step forward and just stood behind the crowd. Ghost Doctor, they are the people of the seven martial sect. You should go in quickly. If you stay here, I'm afraid an elder whispered to the side, worried that once she came out, things would get out of hand. After all, a woman with a beautiful appearance and medical skills that could bring the dead back to life was being watched by too many people, and she didn't have the ability to protect herself. Hearing this, Fengzhou smiled slightly. People of the seven martial sect? She looked at the two people in front of her and asked, "Are you the ones looking for me?" Not bad. That middle-aged man who was ranked fifth stared at Fengzhou. His eyes flashed with an inexplicable radiance. We came to invite the Ghost Doctor to our seven martial sect as a guest, but the Qin clan's people don't know what's good for them. I think the Ghost Doctor should be a smart person. He should know what's best for you. Obediently follow you? Fengzhou chuckled. Her clear eyes turned and landed on that person. However, with just the two of you, this is really not enough. Moreover, I have never been merciful to those who offend me. If you know what's good for you, leave behind an arm, an eye, or a leg each, then I can spare your lives. Otherwise, listening to these words, the seven martial sects people became angry. Someone angrily cursed. What an ungrateful bastard! Before he could finish speaking, he heard a muffled groan. A silver needle had pierced into the middle of that person's eyebrows. Only a little bit of blood was left. That person's body stiffened. After a few seconds, he fell down. Bang! The death of this seven martial sect's disciple made the surrounding people suck in a breath of cold air. Some of them couldn't believe their eyes as they looked at that beautiful woman. They couldn't believe that she had actually killed that man with just one move. Chapter 3250. Even the members of the Qin clan, who had been with Fengzhou for a few days, were extremely astonished and shocked at this scene. They did not know that the Ghost Doctor was actually a hidden expert. With just a raise of her hand, she directly killed a disciple of the seven martial sect. Among the disciples of the seven martial sect who were brought here today, which one of them did not have some ability? But unexpectedly, they were killed in seconds. This was too shocking. The two leaders of the seven martial sect suddenly recovered. Looking at the dead disciple, a ruthless killing intent emerged in their eyes. What a good Ghost Doctor! Refusing a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit, right? Good. I'd like to see what ability you have to be so rampant. As soon as the voice fell, the man ranked fifth moved his body and rushed forward. His tightly clenched fist contained a powerful force and attacked Fengzhou, who was standing there with an indifferent expression. Seeing this attack, many people around were nervous. If this punch landed on the Ghost Doctor, even if she did not die, she would be crippled. It seemed that the fifth leader had the intention to kill. Ghost Doctor, be careful! The elders standing beside Fengzhou shouted. Even second young Master Qin, who was standing at the back, was shocked when he saw this. He was about to step forward and pull her back when he saw the shocking scene below. Cloud-swallowing beast! I want one of his hands, Fengzhou said indifferently. He did not even move, but in the next moment, the cloud-swallowing beast jumped out from the space. Accompanied by a flash of light, a roar was heard. At the same time, the beast opened its big mouth and directly bit off the arm that the man waved. Ayo! Ah! The roar of the beast was powerful and accompanied by a terrifying pressure. Almost as soon as the roar came out, the surrounding people only felt a shock in their hearts. The blood in their body surged up fiercely. Their eardrums hurt and their heads hurt. In the next moment, one by one, they cried out in pain. Their legs went soft and they knelt down, holding their heads and screaming. Ah! Hissed at this moment. The cloud-swallowing beast bit off the man's arm from his shoulder and threw him more than 10 meters away. The fifth leader, who was thrown out, fainted from the heart-wrenching pain. He fell to the ground and did not move, as if he was dead. At this time, no one cared about him. The 7 martial sects people were all screaming miserably as they were unable to stand up, especially when they saw the sacred beast that had landed steadily on the ground with a bloody arm in its mouth. They were so scared that their 3 souls and 7 spirits had disappeared. One after another, they cried out in alarm. Super divine beast. Super divine beast. Ah! Super divine beast. Roar. The cloud-swallowing beast. The cloud-swallowing martial sects people once again, the cloud-swallowing beast, formed of the martial sect, the martial sect. Spare me. Spare me. The commoners who had retreated far away for fear of being affected were all stunned. Among those people, there were even a few people from the aristocratic families who were hiding in the city. There were also the city lords who had rushed over. Only, they did not expect that a super divine beast would appear in this small city. Super divine beast. This was a powerful divine beast that only appeared in legends. How could it appear in their city? This ghost doctor. Just who was she? A woman who actually had such a powerful contracted beast. Chapter 32:51. The members of the Qin family standing beside and behind Fengjiu were completely unaffected. They just stared blankly at the scene in front of them. Also, the pressure of the cloud-swallowing divine beast was directed forward, and it was extremely suppressive towards the people of the 7 martial sect. It didn't even hurt the ordinary people behind them. Therefore, the people who were holding their heads and screaming were only the people of the 7 martial sect. However, what shocked them was that the ghost doctor actually had such a powerful contracted beast. Moreover, it was able to bite off one of the 5th sect leader's arms. This scene happened too quickly, and they did not even have time to stop it. They were afraid that after today, the Qin family and the 7 martial sect would truly be at odds. Based on the 7 martial sect's style, they would not let this matter go so easily. However, in this situation, the ghost doctor could not be blamed. If she did not intervene, would she just wait to be humiliated? Fengjiu did not know that the elders were already thinking about the future. She only did what she felt should be done. Since others came to bully her, she naturally would not accept it. It was also from the 7 martial sects people that she saw that this so-called sect was not a righteous sect. Therefore, she made a decision in her heart. Since this 7 martial sect had a good prestige in this area, then, if the matter got out of hand before she left, she would definitely settle this trouble for the Qin clan. She would definitely not pat her buttocks and leave a mess for the Qin clan to have a headache over. Therefore, she slowly walked forward and came to the side of the swallowing cloud beast. Her gaze indifferently swept over the unconscious 5th sect leader, and then looked at the injured 3rd sect leader who was being supported by the others. She revealed a smile. However, at this moment, the smile on her face was as terrifying as a demon in the eyes of the 7 martial sects people. What about you? Do you want to leave something behind? Or do you want to leave your life here? She stroked the swallowing cloud beast's head with one hand and stroked its hair, while calmly staring at the pale 3rd sect leader. Some people had to use their strength to suppress others. When it was time to be arrogant, they had to be. Since she had the ability to be arrogant, she naturally would not shrink back and let things go easily. Still, what do you want? The 3rd sect leader did not expect that such a beautiful lady would be able to summon a sacred beast the moment she opened her mouth. Looking at the smile in her eyes, he could not help but shiver. How terrifying. This ghost doctor is so scary. He was simply a demon from hell. She wasn't a doctor at all. She must be a demon. You're asking me what I want? Fengjiu chuckled. It's not that I want anything, but that you all have to pay a price. She stared at the 3rd sect leader and said, Are you going to do it yourself? Or should I help you? Seeing the bloodthirsty smile on her lips, the 3rd Order Master felt a chill from the bottom of his heart. He took a step back as his intuition told him that if he had not made his move, she would have ended his life right there and then. Thinking of this, he gritted his teeth and asked, Will you let us go if I make a move? If I'm satisfied, apologize to the Qin clan and promise that you won't come here again. I'll let you go, Fengjiu said with a smile. Chapter 3252. Don't worry, I've always kept my word, Fengzhou said calmly. Seeing this, the third clan leader looked towards the Qin clan and cupped his hands in greeting, saying, I have offended you today. I hope everyone can forgive me. Today, the ghost doctor has given me a way out. From today onwards, I will no longer find trouble with the Qin clan and the ghost doctor. When the Qin clan heard this, they looked at each other in dismay, probably not knowing what to say as they stared blankly for a moment. Then, in that instant, they saw the third clan leader take a deep breath and personally gouge out one of his own eyeballs. Ah! Some of the more cowardly people screamed as they saw the bloody scene and fainted from fright. Even the Qin clan members, as well as some of the aristocratic families and city lords who were hidden among the commoners, gasped when they saw this scene. This person was ruthless to actually dig out one of his own eyeballs just like that. How could they know that the third clan leader had made this decision after much consideration? With that sacred beast here, and the ghost doctor's mysterious skills and what she had said earlier, if he did not do it himself and the ghost doctor did it, who knew if she would cut off one of his arms or one of his legs? Or was it to take his life? Compared to his arms and legs, he felt that losing an eye was considered light. At least his 4 limbs were still intact, and losing an eye did not mean that he could not see anything. But at this moment, the sharp pain in his spine caused his body to sway, and he staggered back a few steps unsteadily. Ghost Doctor, today, I have eyes but did not recognize Mount Tai. I will gouge out one of my own eyes to apologize to you. Is that enough? He looked towards Fengzhou and asked. Fengzhou looked at him and nodded. Take your people and leave. Hearing this, the third clan leader heaved a sigh of relief and quickly took his people away. Not long after, the people surrounding the Qin clan disappeared without a trace. Fengzhou stroked Tunyun's head and looked at the figures of those people leaving, his eyes flashing. There was no hurry. She still wanted to stay here for a few more days, and she wanted to see if they really didn't dare to provoke her again. If they did, then she wouldn't let them off so easily like she did today. However, according to her guess, one of the 7 martial sect leaders had lost an eye, while the other had lost an arm. She reckoned that the others would not give up like this. Let's just wait and see. She patted Tunyun's head. Tunyun wagged its tail, and with a flash of light, it shrunk to the size of a small pet and followed her obediently. Go in, Fengzhou said to Patriarch Qin. As he walked in, he looked at second young Master Qin, who had a complicated look in his eyes. He smiled and said, What's wrong? Are you scared? Second young Master Qin shook his head. No, it's just that I didn't expect you to be so powerful. He already knew that she wasn't ordinary, but he didn't expect her to hide it so deeply that she even had a sacred beast. Fengzhou smiled and walked inside. At the same time, he patted Qin Mu's shoulder and said, There are many things you don't know. He smiled and walked inside, arriving at Patriarch Qin's courtyard. The Qin clan members outside also followed in. Not long after, the door closed again, isolating them from the outside world. The city lord and several people from the aristocratic families looked at the closed door and were all stunned for a while. It seemed that there was nothing for them to do, especially the city lord. He originally wanted to come and mediate, but who knew that things would develop in a way that was beyond his expectations. It was bloody and brutal, and the words he prepared to say to calm them down were all useless. Chapter 3253. After entering, Fengzhou went to Patriarch Qin's courtyard. Seeing the housekeeper standing guard there, she asked, Has the wound been cleaned? Reporting to Ghost Doctor, the wound has been cleaned by the house's doctor, but the patriarch has not woken up yet. The housekeeper quickly replied. Hearing this, Fengzhou nodded slightly and walked in. Inside, Patriarch Qin's wife and daughter were also there. Seeing her arrive, they quickly stood up to welcome her. Ghost Doctor, how is my master? Will he be okay? Madame Qin asked worriedly. Don't worry, I just gave him a detoxification pill outside, Fengzhou said as she stepped forward. Once again, she took the patriarch's pulse. Looking at the already bandaged wound, she smiled. The poison in his body is not a problem. Later, I will write a prescription and he will be fine after drinking 2 sets of medicine. Hearing her say this, Madame Qin and the others breathed a sigh of relief. As long as he was fine, as long as he was fine. Fengzhou turned and walked out. Her steps paused, and she said to eldest young Master Qin and several elders, "Eldest young master, elders, please come out for a moment." Seeing this, they looked at each other and followed her outside. Outside, seeing her standing in the courtyard, one of the elders asked, "Ghost Doctor, what are your orders?" Fengzhou looked at them and said, "These few days, everyone should pay more attention. In addition, it is best to send someone to secretly observe the movements of the 7 martial sect. If there is anything strange, you must tell me immediately." Hearing this, everyone nodded. "Ghost Doctor, rest assured, we will arrange this." "That's good. Later, send someone to get a prescription from me and boil some medicine for the patriarch to drink." She instructed, then turned and left. After she left, the elders also discussed. Finally, they said to eldest young Master Qin, "You stay here and take care of your father. We will arrange the other things." Saying this, they also left. As the night gradually darkened, the city was still brightly lit. Today's scene had a huge impact on everyone. Even though the night was getting darker, they still did not feel sleepy. In the city lord's mansion, the city lord pondered and said to the middle-aged man beside him, "What is the origin of this ghost doctor? Was it true that no one knew? As a woman, and at such a young age, she actually has a sacred beast. This is truly inconceivable." It's not just the city lord who is curious about the ghost doctor's background. Everyone else is the same. However, many people have sent people to inquire about it, and the information they obtained is limited. As the middle-aged man spoke, his eyes flashed. It's really a great fortune for the Qin clan to be able to befriend such a person. The middle-aged man paused for a moment before continuing. Patriarch Qin is injured. Tomorrow, Patriarch might as well bring some gifts and pay him a visit. Hearing this, the city lord was startled for a moment, then reacted, That makes sense. Tomorrow I will go to the Qin family to visit Patriarch Qin." He smiled and said, "You should also go back and rest. Come with me tomorrow." "Yes." The middle-aged man smiled. He stood up and cupped his hands in salute before leaving. At the same time, the other aristocratic families also had the same idea. Meanwhile, in the Qin family, Fengzhou was lying on her bed, deep in thought. She stared at the ceiling of her bed. No one knew what she was thinking about. Only when she felt sleepy did she close her eyes and sleep. Chapter 3254. Ghost Doctor. The front hall is filled with people. All of them are the family heads of the city's aristocratic families, as well as the city lord. They said they want to meet Ghost Doctor. I wonder if Ghost Doctor would like to meet them? The housekeeper asked, slightly lowering his gaze, not daring to look directly at her. I don't have any dealings with them in the past, and they aren't patients, so I won't meet them. You can go and reject them, Fengzhou said, continuing to eat breakfast. Yes. Hearing this, the housekeeper didn't say anything else, but respectfully responded and retreated. Not long later, second young Master Qin came to the courtyard. Seeing that she was still eating breakfast, he also sat down at the table. Ghost Doctor, my father woke up this morning. He had just come back after seeing his father. His spirit was quite good, and his consciousness had also recovered. And it's good that he's awake. Fengzhou nodded, looking at the second young master sitting at the table, smiling. It's good that you came to call me yesterday. Otherwise, your father would be in trouble. Hearing this, second young Master Qin revealed a smile. It's good that Ghost Doctor doesn't blame me for disturbing. Actually, he had also heard that the situation at the front was not good, so he wanted to inform her. But he didn't expect that she would directly go to the front after hearing the news. The trouble came for me, so I should be the one to solve it, Fengzhou said, putting down her chopsticks, and had people clear the things on the table. Second young Master Qin looked at her, thought for a moment, and asked, Ghost Doctor, may I ask, where did you come from? Hearing this, Fangzhou looked at him and asked with a smile that wasn't a smile, "What do you think?" "Should be from some place that we don't know about. A sacred beast, this kind of contracted beast, according to what I know, even some sects that have been around for hundreds of years don't have one. Moreover, ghost doctors' medical skills can really be considered to be reviving the dead. This kind of medical skills, this kind of ability, definitely doesn't come from an ordinary place." A light flashed through his eyes, and he said, "Can Ghost Doctor tell me? Even if I did, you can't go there." Fangzhou shook his head and said, "Where I am, spirit cultivators are everywhere, but there are fewer black martial cultivators. At first, I didn't know how far I was from where I was, but after this period of time, I know a thing or two." She smiled and took a sip of the tea served by the servant. "This place is also part of the upper realm, but it's thousands of miles away. Most importantly, there's an endless forest filled with ferocious beasts as a barrier. So, it's not very realistic for you to go there. Most of the people here were black martial cultivators, and their strength was not very strong, so they naturally could not cross that dangerous place. It was also because of this that the two sides were separated. Spirit cultivators would not come here, and black martial cultivators would not go there." Hearing this, second young Master Qin's eyes flashed. It was unknown what he was thinking. After a long while, he nodded. "I understand." Seeing him like this, Fangzhou said, "Actually, you guys are doing pretty well here. There aren't that many strong practitioners, and the suppression of strength is not that strong. However, if there is some large sect that has been here for 100 years, I reckon there should be a way to go there." Saying this, she smiled. "But I still don't recommend you guys go there." Chapter 32:55. Fangzhou looked at the sky and helplessly said, "My master, an old man brought me here." She sighed and stood up. "I still have a few patients today, so I won't talk to you anymore. I'm going to get busy first." Hearing this, second young Master Qin also stood up and walked out together with her. On the other side, after the 7 martial sects people returned to the sect, the other sect masters saw the appearance of the 2 people who returned. They couldn't help but be so angry that they fiercely slammed their fists on the table, smashing it. "Preposterous! She actually dares to bully my 7 martial sects people. This ghost doctor really has a lot of guts." One of the sect masters angrily shouted. Looking at the pale third brother who was sitting at the side, he took a deep breath and the anger in his chest was difficult to quell. Seeing this, the third sect master bitterly smiled. "Big brother, don't be angry, listen to me." He looked at the person in the main seat and said, "That ghost doctor took a disciple's life the moment she acted, and it was done with a single silver needle. As for old Fifth, his arm was bitten off by the contracted beast that the ghost doctor summoned. As for this eye of mine, it was dug out by myself." "Hiss, you dug it out yourself? How did you?" After everyone heard this, they couldn't help but take in a breath of cold air. They were very puzzled and shocked. What kind of person was she? That's why third brother dug out one of his eyes himself? "If I didn't dig out his eye, I'm afraid we wouldn't be able to come back alive to see you." The third sect master sighed. "This ghost doctor, we can't provoke her. She's just a woman. How can we not provoke her? What kind of heavenly ability does she have?" The sect master in the main seat said in a deep voice, his eyes filled with killing intent. "You don't know. Although she is a woman, her strength is unfathomable. Moreover, her contracted beast is not an ordinary contracted beast. But what?" Seeing the fear in his eyes when he said this, they couldn't help but ask. The third sect master took a deep breath and suppressed the fear in his heart, then said, "It's a sacred beast. Her contracted beast is a sacred beast." Hiss! Hearing this, their faces were filled with shock. Some of them even stood up and asked in a shrill voice, Super divine beast? Are you sure? How could I be wrong?" The third sect leader smiled bitterly. "Once that sacred beast's aura was released, we were almost unable to withstand it. If not for the fact that the ghost doctor had a sacred beast protecting her, if not for the situation at that time, Why would I have to dig out my own eyes to survive? The few of them fell silent, as if they were pondering over his words. After a long while, one of them said, "This ghost doctor really isn't simple. Sacred beast. Looking at our place, I have never heard of anyone with a sacred beast. It's more than that. I feel that she's not from our side. She must have come from somewhere else. I just don't know where she came from. But one thing is for sure, we can't provoke her. Otherwise, it'll be too late for regrets." The third sect leader said with lingering fear. When they heard this, they looked at each other and said to the third sect leader, "Third sect leader, after going out for a while, you seem to have become timid." Chapter 32:56. Listening to his words, several people's hearts were moved. This ghost doctor injured old 3 and old 5 like this. If we don't teach her a lesson, how can our 7 martial sect establish ourselves? What's more, I feel that if we use our brains, we can capture the ghost doctor and make her contract beast our 7 martial sects. That would be a great help. Second brother, you can't. Hearing this, the third sect master's face changed. I already agreed. I won't cause trouble for them anymore. He was really scared. They didn't personally experience it, so they didn't know that when he faced the ghost doctor, his heart was filled with fear. Old 3, your courage is too small. What's more, she caused you to dig out your own eye. How can we let this matter go? How about... His voice paused, looking at the others. If we can't do it openly, then we won't do it secretly. What do we say? Good. The others' eyes were filled with excitement. How can we be humiliated by a girl like this? We must teach her a lesson. As for that sacred beast, we will do it secretly. Don't confront it. At that time, without the sacred beast's help, what can the ghost doctor do? Several people discussed in the hall. The more they talked, the more excited they became. Only the third sect master listened to their words. His face was pale, his eyes were filled with fear, and his heart was restless. He was thinking, if they really wanted to make a move against the ghost doctor, then he had to go out and lie low for a while. The ghost doctor's power was too strong, to the point that he couldn't walk out from her pressure, let alone think about scheming against her. They dared, but he didn't dare. 2 days later, the 7 martial sects people secretly sneaked into the city, and when they sneaked into the city, the Qin clan's people also received the news. After the clan elder told the eldest young master about this matter, he asked him to find Fengjiu and tell her about it. Eldest young master Qin came to the courtyard. Seeing Fengjiu sitting in the courtyard, he said, "Ghost doctor, the 7 martial sects people have begun to move." Fengjiu, who was reading a medicine book in the courtyard, heard this, put away the medicine book in her hand, and asked, "They came to the city again?" "Yes, the hidden guards sent by the elders have found out that they have secretly entered the city." First young Master Qin looked at her and asked, "What should we do next?" Fengjiu walked slowly and gracefully in the courtyard. "You don't have to do anything. Just wait for them to come. Since they refuse to take the path to heaven, then don't blame her for opening the gates to hell for them." At night, the surroundings were pitch black and the streets were deserted. At this moment, the several 7 martial sect leaders came together and surrounded the Qin family with their people. Below the wall, the gatekeeper asked, "Have you drugged him?" "Don't worry, big brother. I've already bribed the servants to drug the water they drink. Now they're probably sleeping like dead pigs, waiting to be slaughtered by us." Hearing this, the gate master nodded. "Very good. Lead a group of people and sneak in first. We'll be right behind you." "All right." After answering, he waved his hand and led a group of disciples to quietly enter the Qin family. However, when they jumped into the Qin family's gate, they faintly smelled a faint fragrance permeating the air. "Is this the fragrance of flowers coming from the garden? Smells pretty good," the person in front said while walking inside. After making sure it was safe, he let the people behind him come in. Chapter 32:57. Therefore, when they suddenly collapsed one by one, the people behind them did not notice. What they saw was Tun Yun appearing out of nowhere and dragging the fallen people out one by one. Qin Mansion was silent. Tonight seemed to be quieter than any other night. Even the guards on night patrol could not be seen. It was not that they were not patrolling, but Fengzhou had instructed them not to go out tonight and not to come out even if they heard any commotion. Therefore, although they were curious about what had happened outside, they did not leave. They did not step out of their rooms. In a pavilion not far from the garden, Fengzhou, who was dressed in red, sat there and drank wine. She glanced at the unconscious people who were dragged out of the garden by Tun Yun. After knowing that these people had entered the city, she told the Qin clan members not to leave their rooms as soon as night fell. She had set up a lot of formations in the Qin clan and even used some medicine in the formations. As long as they dared to enter, she would be able to catch them all in one fell swoop. Looking at the disciples of the Seven Martial School who were dragged out of various formations by Tun Yun, Fengzhou twitched the corners of her mouth. They dared to come with such little strength. The ignorant were really fearless. "Master, there seems to be no one in the formations," Tun Yun said and looked at her master in the pavilion. "They probably noticed, but it doesn't matter. Old Bai is guarding outside. Since they're here, they won't let any of them escape," Fengzhou said and put down her wine cup. She stood up and said, "Let's go and take a look." "Yes." Tun Yun responded and followed her out. Outside, there was no movement from the people who went in. This made the Great Gate Master and Second Gate Master, who were guarding outside, feel uneasy. Looking at the quiet Qin mansion, they frowned. Why is there no movement? Could something have happened? If something had happened, it would be impossible for there to be no movement. The two of them discussed for a while and said, "Why don't we send someone in to take a look?" "Okay." Therefore, the two of them beckoned for someone to go in and take a look, who knew that the person would not return. After waiting for a while and not seeing that person return, the two men's expressions changed and they immediately said, "Something must have happened. Retreat." They raised their hands and were about to leave with their people when they suddenly heard a sound behind them. They turned around and saw a strange-looking snow-white horse. "Chi!" White snorted twice, flicked his tail and looked at those people. Then he raised his head and raised his chin slightly, looking at them with an insufferably arrogant look. Then he opened his mouth and said, "How dare you have designs on my master with your pathetic looks? Are you tired of living?" That Seven Martial Sect's disciple was dumbfounded as he looked at the white horse that could speak human language with a dumbfounded expression. His heart was startled as he involuntarily retreated. "You! What kind of beast are you? I am your ancestor." White glanced at him with disdain. He opened his mouth to reveal his teeth and laughed. "You want to run? Don't waste your energy. Since you're already here, it would be strange if my master let you leave." Chapter 32:58. This is the sacred beast? No, this is a female beast. That sacred beast is a male beast. A terrified voice trembled as he looked at the squatting female beast, then looked at the talking white horse, and could not help but retreat. "Go." The sect leader's expression changed, and he immediately gathered his chi, preparing to escape. Who knew, just as he gathered his chi and his figure was in the air, Lao Bai's body changed, and he instantly flew into the air, swinging his tail and fiercely striking him down. "Pong! Pooh! My master did not allow you to leave. Why are you leaving?" Lao Bai transformed into a dragon, circling in the air, looking at the figures that had been struck down by him. The female beast, Tun Yun, lazily stretched and stood up, walking around, a pair of ferocious and bloodthirsty eyes staring at the people who were preparing to escape. Those people were stared at by its gaze, and they only felt a strong pressure pressing down on their heads, causing their legs to go soft, and they fell to the ground. The two beasts, one in the air and one on the ground, stared at those people until they saw a red figure appear out of nowhere, sitting on the wall and looking down. When the female beast saw Tun Yun, its eyes lit up, the ferocious look in its eyes disappeared, and it looked at it like a love-struck fool. Tun Yun caught a glimpse of its gaze, and the corner of its mouth twitched slightly. It fiercely glared at it and turned its head away. Feng Zhou saw the actions of the two contracted beasts and smiled in his heart. His gaze shifted and fell on the people below. Sect leader of the Seven Martial Sect? The sect leader, who had been thrown down by Tun Yun, heard this voice, turned around, and could not help but be shocked. You are the ghost doctor? That's right, I am the ghost doctor. Feng Zhou said leisurely, sitting on the wall. Her entire person looked very leisurely, one hand supporting the wall, the other holding a wine gourd, slightly raising her head to take a sip of wine. Her posture was indescribably elegant and indescribably beautiful. Under the moonlight, the red-clothed beauty sat alone on the wall, drinking wine. Her every movement exuded confidence and laziness. A trace of wine slipped from the corner of her mouth, slipped into her clothes, and disappeared. This scene was extremely captivating, and it caused one's mouth to go dry. However, at this moment, in the eyes of the Seven Martial Sects members, she was an extremely dangerous figure, so how could they have any other thoughts? I originally thought that as long as all of you didn't cause trouble, I would let your Seven Martial Sect off. But I never expected that all of you would seek death. Since it's like this, then don't blame me for being impolite. As soon as her voice fell, her eyes narrowed as she stared at the two Seven Martial Sects sect masters. She then said to the devouring Cloud Mother, "Kill them!" Almost as soon as she finished speaking, the mother beast leaped up and slashed its claws at the two of them. Roar! A low roar resounded like a clap of thunder, causing the hearts of some of the people in the city who were paying attention to the Qin family to tremble. Ah! Mournful screams streaked across the night sky in the next moment, but quickly fell. The smell of blood permeated the air, and the two bodies on the ground fell down and twitched. Two pairs of eyes were still looking in front of them with horror, and even when they breathed their last, they could not close their eyes. Chapter 32:59. Well done. Feng Zhou curled his lips, glanced at the two dead men, then glanced at the Seven Martial Sects disciples who were kneeling on the ground in fear. Master, do you want to kill them too? The mother beast licked its claws and asked Feng Zhou, its bloodthirsty eyes staring at the disciples. No, spare our lives. When the disciples heard this, they quickly kowtowed and begged for mercy. Feng Zhou's eyes moved slightly and said, I don't want to kill you, but you have to cripple your cultivation. Cripple my cultivation? What? Don't you want to keep your life? Then, before she finished her words, she heard those people quickly say, No, we want to keep our lives, we want to keep our lives. Compared to their cultivation, they wanted to keep their lives. What's more, if they crippled their cultivation, they could cultivate again. At least there was a glimmer of hope. Thus, the 20 to 30 people crippled their cultivation one by one, only to see the aura of Shen Qi emitted from their body, like a deflated balloon. One by one, their faces turned pale. Feng Zhou glanced at them and said coldly, This is the only chance to live. Get lost. Hearing this, someone trembled and said, Our other sect masters. Haha, do you think they can still live? Feng Zhou sneered. Hearing these words, those people finally gave up. One by one, they helped each other up and quickly left. Watching them leave, the mother beast could not help but scratch its head. Master, why did you let them go? Wouldn't it be easier to kill them? It really did not know what humans were thinking. If it was it would directly kill these people and end all troubles. Feng Zhou smiled and looked at it. You've been with me for some time now, but I haven't given you a name yet. Let's call you Lightning. The cloud-swallowing beast was a ferocious beast of the wind attribute. It was extremely fast, so it was appropriate to name it Lightning. Hearing this, the mother beast was slightly taken aback. It didn't understand why its name was mentioned, but when it heard the name, it was overjoyed. It immediately said, Lightning thanks Master for bestowing a name. Feng Zhou waved his hand and placed Senior White back into space. After that, he took Tun Yun back to the estate and removed the formations within it. In the end, he asked Tun Yun to summon the elders of the Qin clan. When those elders arrived at the mansion's garden, they saw that the several seven martial sects sect masters had already been killed, as well as the pile of unconscious disciples of the seven martial sect. They were all stunned. Ghost Doctor, I'll leave these people to you. From today onwards, you don't have to worry about the seven martial sect coming to find trouble with you. Even if there are a few of them alive, they won't have the guts to provoke your Qin family. As Feng Zhou spoke, he glanced at the people on the ground. He then looked at the Qin clan and said, I've been here for a while. I originally planned to leave after treating 100 people, but I have to leave early today. The Ghost Doctor is leaving? They were shocked and couldn't help but look at her. Yes. She nodded and said, Currently, the patients I've treated are all fine, and I've stayed here for some time. Now that I've helped you get rid of the trouble, it's time for me to leave. Second young Master Qin walked out of nowhere, looked at her and asked, After the Ghost Doctor leaves, will you come back? Chapter 3260. Hearing that, second young Master Qin looked deeply at her and said, Then take care. He hoped that he would have the chance to see her again in the future. She nodded slightly and said, I'll leave tomorrow. After I've settled the matters in this courtyard, you can all go back and rest. With that, she returned to the courtyard first. She had originally planned to stay here until she had treated 100 people before leaving. However, she suddenly felt like visiting other places tonight and decided to leave. After she left, the elders looked at those unconscious people and couldn't help but exchange glances. The next day, Feng Zhou woke up at noon. After she had her meal, she went to visit Master Qin and bid him farewell at the same time. The Qin family sent her out of the city and only returned after watching her leave. It was also because of this that many people in the city knew that the Ghost Doctor had left. After leaving the city, Feng Zhou sat on the rainbow glass feather and flew. She enjoyed the cool breeze that blew against her face as she took out some wine to drink. She was really aimless here and didn't know where to go. Fortunately, there weren't many places left for the 100 people. Otherwise, she really wouldn't know where to find them. She flew all the way and swept past the nearby towns. When night fell, she casually found a place to rest. When the sun rose, she continued to fly and leave. Just like that until the evening of the second day. Seeing that the sky was about to darken again, she saw a village in the distance and planned to stay there for the night. However, when she neared the village, she couldn't help but stop in her tracks. Her eyes flickered as she looked at the village in front of her. In front of her was a small village with 20 to 30 houses. It looked very much like an ordinary village. However, when she neared, she inexplicably felt a cold air pervading the surroundings. She frowned and stopped in her tracks. Instead of going forward, she turned around and left this place. Based on her intuition, this village wasn't normal. If she went in, she would probably get into trouble again. Therefore, after some hesitation, she still chose to avoid it. Normal people wouldn't be able to live in such a cold place. Even if there was, it could only be something that couldn't see the light of day. After she left the place, she didn't go forward. Instead, she retreated to a place about 500 meters away. She lit a fire and rested there until the sky turned completely dark. In the pitch-black night, faint howls could be heard. In the middle of the night, she leaned against the hillside to rest. In front of her was a bonfire that emitted a warm aura. Throughout the night, even with her eyes closed, she felt several things trying to get close to her. However, in the end, they all left after hesitating. Furthermore, she had summoned the cloud-devouring beast and lightning in the middle of the night. They stood guard on either side of her and a powerful aura emanated from their bodies. Those filthy things did not dare to approach her at all. Furthermore, she was wearing the gourd that her sister, Wanyan Qianhua, had given her. The night passed quietly. When dawn broke the next day, the bonfire in front of Feng Zhou was extinguished, leaving only wisps of smoke rising in spirals without a single spark. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.